This conference is being recorded. Only the main conference is recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon we'll be going through how to use statewide contracts. If you have any questions, please put them in either the chat or the Q&A. We'll address them either during the presentation or after. All right, so we'll go through the who, what, where, when, why, well, no why, but how and how much of statewide contracts, and not in that order. I'll start with what are statewide contracts. These are contracts for services, supplies, or major repairs that are established by state procurement. They are available statewide, and they're typically for a period of longer than 1 year. And they're put in place because they address needs common to many state agencies and local governments. The statewide contracts can be used by all state agencies and departments, all political subdivisions of the state, including parish governments, cities, towns, school districts, universities, community colleges, levy boards, etc. And they can also be used by certain authorized quasi-state agencies. These are entities that perform a public function using public funding. Biggest kind of case point there is going to be your charter schools, but there's also many others that fall within quasi. In the past few years, the government has extended this to many early childhood learning centers as well, falling within authorized quasi-agencies. We say authorized here because to be eligible to use a statewide contract as a quasi-agency, you have to get approval from the Office of State Procurement. That's done by submitting a statewide contract questionnaire and then receiving a letter stating that you are allowed to use our statewide contracts. Statewide contracts benefit most of government. Within users, you're benefiting by lower prices. We're combining purchasing power of many different entities, which will lower those prices. And they also provide administrative ease, meaning there are less bids. You also get to hand off the contract management piece to the Office of State Procurement. On the vendor side, they have access to more buyers, so it benefits them as well. And they also have the benefit of not having to respond to as many bids. Taxpayers get a lower cost. Their taxpayer money goes further. Auditors particularly like our statewide contracts because they makes it easier to perform their audit. They know that it was an authorized purchase. And at state procurement, we also benefit because we don't have to manage as many bids. Statewide contracts are created through just about every procurement method that we are authorized to do. Most of them are going to be done through an ITB based solely on low price, but we do have a few that are done through a RFP. More and more we're turning to cooperative purchasing because just how we get lower prices on our statewide contracts by combining the spend of all our governmental entities within Louisiana. By using a cooperative, we're combining that spend from multiple states. So we're ending up with much lower prices than what we could get on our own. So you'll see lots of those now where has been increasing as a percentage with the cooperative purchasing. Some lesser known methods would be a brand name solicitation. That is really just an ITB, but specifying the brand name. And we also do have a few still LMAS contracts, which are based on GSA pricing. Mentioned in the benefits that benefit of the using your statewide contracts is that you don't have to do the contract management. That's done at OSP. So specifically what we're doing at state procurement is we handle the solicitation, negotiation of the contract, the award, and monitoring service levels. We correspond with those contractors regularly. We'll handle any problems that arise as well. But with that, because we're setting up the contracts, we're not using them in most cases. We rely on our purchasing entities to submit complaints to us. We do that through a form on the OSP website. And that's really just to give us feedback on how our contractors are performing. You can do that from the OSP website by clicking on Agency Resources, then Purchasing, and then Agency Forms. All right. We are constantly creating and revising statewide contracts. We have 2 teams dedicated to creating, soliciting, managing our statewide contracts. So it's an ongoing process. We do that at the state level fairly easily by looking at P-card transactions of our state agencies and finding where people are spending off contract and would it be beneficial to create a statewide contract for those. For our political subdivisions and non-state agencies, though, we really would rely on direct contact from those 8 entities. So if you see something out there, there's no statewide contract for it, but it's something that you believe would benefit multiple agencies, you can certainly send us a note advising us of such. So one of the big benefits of statewide contracts is that you don't have a bid that's required. This is regardless of which title you operate under purchasing-wise, whether it's Title 38 or Title 39. All authorized entities can purchase from our contracts directly. There's no cap for using the statewide contracts unless you have a local rule or law preventing you to do otherwise. But at the state level or through OSP's policies, you can spend non-competitively on our statewide contracts as much or as little as you need. And so you're ultimately limited by your budget and also the vendor's capabilities. So you want, eventually they will run out of whatever they're selling. If you're using a P card, that would also limit what you can do, but that's really a rule on how much you can use on your P card and not really tied to the contract. As we mentioned, can also be as little as needed. What we mean by that is actually the way our contract pricing works is it is the maximum not to exceed price for a quantity of 1. So if you find yourself buying in bulk from our statewide contract, you can reach out to the contract holder to ask for volume discounts or any other promotions that may be out there. Another way you can reduce your expenses is to compare the contracts when there are multiple awards. Many of these you'll see lapse rule applied to those contracts. When you see that, it's actually required that you compare the contracts. But what you're going to do there is you just reach out to 3 or more of the contract holders and ask them, give them a brief description of what you're trying to do, and they'll send you a quote, essentially. In that case, you don't have to go with the low quote, but you do have to make a business determination and document your file as to why you chose who you chose. Another thing to be aware of is that some of our contracts have a minimum order quantity on certain items. So just as you're looking through the contracts, be aware of that as well. It's not very common, but it does occur on some of them. All right. We currently have over 650 statewide contracts, and as I said, that number is constantly changing. And they're going to cross just about everything. Many are common things that you often use, such as MROs, office supplies, wireless services. But we also have some that maybe would be less known, like lab or pharmaceuticals, herbicides, janitorial chemicals. One of the big categories that we've recently awarded, well, I guess it's been nearly 3 years now, so it's not terribly recent, is information technology staffing support. So, if you have a need for some IT personnel to come in and assist, we have a statewide contract for that now. We also have a statewide contract for call centers as well. You can find our statewide contracts through eCat. Easiest way to get there is procurement.la.gov, quick links, and then eCat will be one of the links listed. If you're having trouble finding something, you can also contact our help desk. All right. So to get to eCat, and we'll do a quick demonstration, not really a demonstration, but some screenshots of it. It's starting on our website. You'll see under quick links, link to eCat. Bring you to our electronic catalog website. And we have various search fields here that you can use. And sometimes it helps to do multiple types of searches, but there are 3 kind of ways to do it. You'll see across the top in various columns. So you've got contract, vendor information, and contract line item. And then on the bottom, you can search for contracts, the contract line items, which are generally gonna be generic, and then the specific items, which are referred to here as the catalog items. Okay. So to help visualize that, you have your contract as a big kind of container holder. Each contract can have multiple line items. Then within each line item, you'll have various catalog items. Okay. So various ways to search. One of the common ways is to use the contract description field. Here we searched for copier. You can see we returned 27 results. That's going to be 27 contracts that had the word copier in their contract description. Okay. If you want to narrow that down and you know a particular vendor, you can search on the vendor name. Here we have Xerox. That's returning 5 contracts with the word Xerox in them. Okay. To narrow down even further, for instance, here we searched for John Deere as the vendor, but also included the term Gator in the catalog item, and that will show us because we have our radio button on contracts in the middle, it shows us one contract that has a catalog item, or one contract with John Deere that has Gator in at least one of the catalog items. If we had flipped this to catalog items, we would have gotten a list of how many catalog items actually had that word Gator in them. Another way to search, here we're searching on the line item themselves. So before, when we search contract description for copier, it returned 27 results. If we search on the line item, now we're only getting 15. But you can see this last result there, multifunction Duplo Lamass contract, does not actually have copier in the contract description. So that's a result that we picked up by doing the search this way. You can narrow it even further. Now we're searching a line item for copier, and we want a high capacity copier, so we're searching a catalog item long description for high capacity. You can see that brings us 6 results. Again, we could get the actual line items by choosing line item radio button, and we can get the actual catalog items by choosing catalog items there. When you're searching for some, particularly if it's maybe a more obscure good or service, and you're not certain if we even have a contract for that, we recommend starting out at a broad search just to try to pull in as much information as you can, and then you can always narrow your search to zoom in and find this particular contract that you're looking for. Most of our previous searches that we saw were on the contract, so you'll see the contract number is hyperlinked. Clicking on that contract number will bring you to the contract items with the line items there. Clicking on each line item will show you the catalog items within. The catalog items are going to be what you're actually purchasing, so that's what you're looking for. Okay. Within these pages and the header, you'll have the vendor's contact information. It's always a good place to look, and you can ask the vendor for information about what's on their contract. You'll have the contract term listed as well. Anything that you'll find in eCat will be a currently active contract. So what you'd really be looking for here is if your contract's about to expire, which would mean you need to hurry up and purchase from it. And we'll also have our buyer's information as well. It's another good resource. If you just want information about the contract, you can contact our buyer. At the bottom of the screen, you'll have some buttons that will bring additional information. View contract will show some information as well as notes. And then you'll also want to check show additional attachments. That's particularly important if the contract is a cooperative contract or was from an RFP. That's where you'll find things like the terms and conditions associated with the contract. If it's from an RFP, the actual contract will be there. If it has unique pricing, the price schedule might be in there as well. Some additional features that you might not be aware of that can be useful, particularly useful. First one would be searching by T number. That can be useful if you're aware of one contract, but you're not sure if it's a multiple award contract or you just want to look for similar contracts to that one. You can find the T number for that contract and then do an eCat search on that T number. It'll bring up all of the contracts within that portfolio. You can also filter by cooperative contract type. This is going to show here what we mean by cooperative is available to non-state agencies. So some of our contracts, statewide contracts, are only available to state agencies. So if you are a local, you are going to want to change that co-op field to yes. You can also search on Hudson or veteran vendor certification, and you can also look for emergency contracts as well with the yes/no drop down. Some additional tips. Try searches in different ways. A lot of this is going to be very similar to search tips in a regular search engine. So try your searches in different ways. Mentioned we have 650 contracts. If you're not finding something that seems like we should have a contract for it, chances are that we're just not using the right search term. Singular and plural will be something as well. Make sure you check both. Generally, singular will be the correct choice, but occasionally a buyer may have put in a plural term. So you may want to use that. Variations in contract naming, those are going to be important as well. Sometimes it's, you know, maybe you call something a different term, but the contract's actually called something else. I mentioned the call center. That's actually going to be in eCat as a customer service center. So if you were to search by call center, it'd likely not bring any results. So that's one example there. If you're getting lots of results in, you don't want to wade through every single contract that's coming up. Use a combination of fields. That'll help narrow your results down. As we mentioned before, always check the contract, the notes, and additional attachments. There should be enough information in those three places for you to understand the contract and how it goes, but not always. Sometimes they're very confusing and you'll have to contact OSP. So if all else fails, that's, you know, we're here to provide that customer service. If you know the buyer or found the contract, the buyer's listed there, you can contact the buyer directly. If it's a more generic question, definitely send it to the help desk. All right, so now we have time for some questions.
So we have one in the chat, and I think you've responded to this. So we are able to search procurement's contracts and then review the contract to see if it covers something we need?
Yes, all of our statewide contracts that are currently active will be in eCat. So yeah, searching there is always a good first spot. And then, you know, there should be, as I mentioned, there should be enough information, whether it's like directly in eCat or you have to check the attachments. There should be enough information there to determine if that contract will meet your needs.
If anybody else has any questions, okay, here we go. Do we have to get approval for each contract, or can there be one approval?
Okay, so that can mean a couple different things. The first, I guess, approval would be if you're one of those quasi-agencies to get approved to use statewide contracts, the approval is global, so it allows you to use any of the contracts that allow that. So, as mentioned before, not all statewide contracts are available to non-state agencies. So it would be any of those that are available to everyone. If you mean approval on your end to use them, that's gonna be up to your local rules.
She said I was approved 5 years ago. Do I have to get approval each year or duration of the contract?
No, if you were approved and you received a letter from our office giving you the ability to use our statewide contracts, that lasts forever. And to add into that, we have a list, we maintain a list of everybody we've approved on our website. So if you're not sure if you are approved, you can always check there. The easiest way I found to find the list is to actually click on vendor resources, and then on the right side, towards the bottom of the page, there will be a link that says approved quasi agencies. Clicking there will bring you to the list. I'll also bring you to the questionnaire for that. That if you're not listed, and then Amber just put the link in the chat as well. All right. So it appears we don't. Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Leslie.
Yeah, that's common that we see. One of our big uses are our food contracts. All right. So if you think of any questions after this, feel free to reach out. Our contact information is on the screen. We will be posting this webinar to our website in the coming days. It'll be available under training resources, so you'll be able to go review. And then, to mention any questions you have, feel free to reach out either through the help desk emails or by calling us out on our main line. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. We hope this was informative. And we'll hope you have a good rest of your day.